When the leaders of the two largest economies meet in San Francisco Wednesday, don't expect any breakthroughs on policy. Instead, look for what President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping say about working together to improve their respective economies. While significant issues exist, they both have an interest in cooperation there. While the United States has been spending months fighting against inflation, China has the opposite problem. Prices there are falling, and many consumers are reluctant to spend their money. As a result, Chinese businesses struggle, and the economy's overall growth shrinks. President Biden says the U.S. can help.
We're not trying to decouple from China, but what we're trying to do is change the relationship for the better. From my perspective, if in fact the Chinese people who are in trouble right now economically, if the average citizen in China was able to have a decent paying job, that benefits them and it benefits all of us.
And let's bring in Zoe Liu. She is a Maurice R. Greenberg Fellow for China Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's step back here. What is the root of China's current economic challenges?
Thank you very much, John, for having me. China's current economic malaise can be analyzed through different lenses, and the framework that I use to analyze China's current economic challenges is through the so-called 4Ds, including debt, demand, demographics, and finally, decoupling or de-risking. And I'll stop there, but I'm happy to explore more.
So the U.S. can't help with demographics. So that's one of the Ds that in this current negotiating context, they can't fix. What about the other three? Is there an obvious area there where in these negotiations, the U.S. and China could make an agreement that would help with China's underlying economic issues?
John, you are right. The demographic issue probably is not something that the United States or U.S. government could help. However, the rest of the 3Ds, actually, U.S. has a lot the United States can help a lot with. To begin with, in terms of decoupling or de-risking, I think the Biden administration has been constantly sending the signal saying that the United States does not intend to decouple from China. However, the policies from export controls to investment screening, both inbound and outbound, seems to send mixed signals as viewing it from Beijing's perspective. Although the Biden administration have been saying that, our purpose or the goal of our policies is really to prevent the Chinese army or the Chinese military to have access to advanced U.S. technologies to enhance their own combat and technological capabilities. But, Chinese business, Chinese people, as well as Chinese policymakers view it as containment. So from that perspective, this summit is an opportunity to clear the air. And then the second aspect of that in terms of demand, this becomes a little bit tricky in that demand comes from two sides. One is export, the other is domestic demand. While the United States can help in terms of balancing the trade, but the balancing the trade meaning that China should import more. So that becomes a little bit tricky. And then finally, in terms of debt, I think here this is another area where the United States probably can, especially U.S. finance industry, U.S. financial service industry, can help China in terms of improving the reporting and accounting system, but in terms of solving the fundamental root cause of the China's debt problem, especially the property sector, there is really little that the U.S. government or U.S. financial system can do.
So in this question of decoupling, as I understand it, that essentially means making sure that there are that the United States, both its government and its businesses, are less dependent on China for important goods or important markets, that basically it puts distance with China. I have sort of two questions, but they're related. What could President Biden offer that would show this decoupling is not taking place? And then the second part is, President Xi is meeting with American businesses. They would like to stay in touch with the Chinese market. So might he get signals about a continued connection when he has those meetings with private industry?
Yeah, John, you are absolutely right in that you identified the two pieces here. One is the U.S. government, and then the other piece, which is actually very much important, the U.S. business. And oftentimes we seem to not necessarily separate the two together. From the U.S. government perspective, I think it is very difficult at this moment for President Biden to communicate to President Xi Jinping the idea that U.S. is not intending to decouple from China, because from President Xi Jinping's perspective, a lot of these export controls mechanism is really targeting, or the goal is to stop China from growing. Therefore, I think it's important for President Biden to communicate directly, saying that there are direct causal mechanisms that the Chinese government, especially since President Xi Jinping came into power, for example, he's Made in China 2050, and President Xi Jinping's elevation of civil-military fusion strategy as a national strategy, a lot of these directly contributed to concerns of the U.S. government. Therefore, we reacted by export controls, specifically in limited sectors that can have a military implication. And then in terms of business, I think right now business executives are facing a really difficult time, because the Chinese market has never been perfect. However, the attractive of the Chinese market has been that there is policy predictability. Therefore, if President Xi Jinping really wanted to invite American business communities back into China, he would literally have to communicate and ensure, or providing some reassuring message that government is not necessarily going to disappear foreign executives or impose exit bans. And more importantly, he's going to restore policy predictability.
All right. Zoe Liu with the Council on Foreign Relations, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.